All right, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's explainer. We are setting off on an absolute epic of a journey right into the heart of our planet's most astonishing natural wonder. We're going to peel back that dense jungle canopy to uncover the hidden realities, the violent history, and honestly, the completely bizarre biology of the Amazon River. You see, this isn't just a body of water. It's a massive, living, breathing ecosystem that literally powers the globe.
But before we trace its ancient roots, I've got to pose a bit of a mind-bending paradox to you. How is it that a river responsible for a staggering 20% of the entire world's freshwater flow doesn't have a single bridge crossing it? Like zero, not one. Well, the answer comes down to its unfathomable scale. In some places, this river spans anywhere from 10 to a whopping 100 kilometers wide. Couple that insane width with the fact that it just winds through these vast, roadless jungle territories, and, well, building a bridge becomes physically impossible. And honestly, totally unnecessary. Locals just use boats. It's a river that totally plays by its own rules.
To really wrap our heads around the sheer magnitude of the Amazon, we're going to walk through 6 key chapters today. We'll start with its violent birth, move into the great origin mystery, and then explore what I like to call a river of monsters. After that, we'll look at its massive flood cycle, how it dramatically meets the Atlantic Ocean, and finally, we'll discuss why this incredible ecosystem is currently in danger.
All right, Chapter 1, The Amazon's Violent Birth. This is all about how it was forged by cosmic impacts and shifting continents.
The river basin we see today, yeah, it wasn't just some gradual trickle that grew over time. It's actually the result of catastrophic, world-altering events. Just thinking about the sheer scale of history here is kind of breathtaking. Around 80 million years ago, as the continents were slowly drifting apart, the Andes Mountains began this violent upward thrust. Then boom, 67 million years ago, a massive 27-kilometer-wide asteroid slams into Earth. We all know it wiped out the dinosaurs, right? But here's the crazy part. By wiping out the massive herbivorous dinosaurs that used to eat every single sapling in sight, that impact actually allowed the dense Amazon rainforest to finally grow. Fast forward a bit to the Miocene epoch, roughly 11.8 million years ago, and the Amazon, well, it wasn't even a river. It was a giant inland freshwater sea. It wasn't until an ice age hit about 10 million years ago, dropping global ocean levels, that this giant sea finally drained out and transformed into the flowing river we know today.
And that brings us to one of the absolute wildest geographical facts you will ever hear. Originally, the ancient Proto-Amazon actually flowed east towards the Pacific Ocean. It was part of the massive Congo River system back when the continents were all squished together in Gondwana. But when those massive tectonic plates collided and the Andes Mountains shot up, they literally formed a giant wall, blocking the river's path. So the water just kept building and building until it had no choice but to completely reverse its direction. Today, the modern Amazon flows west to empty into the Atlantic Ocean. Seriously, a river forced to pull a permanent U-turn by a mountain range? How crazy is that?
Moving on to Part 2, The Great Origin Mystery. Let's dive into the 4,200 to 7,000 kilometer debate.
You know, you'd think with all our modern satellite technology, we'd know exactly how long the world's mightiest river actually is, right? Well, nope. It's actually this massive, ongoing geographical detective story. Cartographers and scientists have been arguing about this for centuries, mostly because they just can't agree on what makes a river's source. Do you measure it by the spot that dumps the most water into the river, or do you trace the absolute longest continuous trickle you can find? Back in 1707, Father Fritz said the Marañón River in Peru was the source because of its massive water volume. But then in the 1960s, Carlos Peña pointed to the Apurimac River. And then, as recently as 2014, researcher James Contos used satellite data to say, actually, it's the Montara River, which would add another 75 to 77 kilometers to the total length. Because of all these conflicting definitions, estimates for the Amazon's length swing wildly. We're talking anywhere from 4,200 kilometers all the way up to 7,000 kilometers. And that's exactly why the debate over whether the Amazon or the Nile is the longest river on Earth is still fiercely alive today. And honestly, just when scientists thought they were finally getting a handle on this entire basin, the year 2011 brought a massive curveball. Researchers discovered the Hamza River. Now, this isn't your average river. It's a colossal, hidden body of water flowing entirely underground, running perfectly parallel to the Amazon River above it. It's just wild. It goes to show that the Amazon basin is so unbelievably vast that it's quite literally hiding continent-spanning secrets right beneath our feet. Which brings us to Chapter 3,
a river of monsters. We're unveiling the 5,600 species of the deep. Okay, so the sheer volume of water here makes the Amazon a playground for some of the most bizarre and, frankly, terrifying biology on the planet. The wildlife specs here are just off the charts, and a pretty solid reminder of why you probably don't want to go for a casual swim. For starters, you've got the black caiman. Picture a 5-meter-long, 500-kilogram reptilian predator that practically hasn't changed in 80 million years. Then there's the arapaima, or piracucu, a massive 15-foot-long freshwater fish. If that doesn't keep you out of the water, how about the fact that there are over 100 different species of electric eels down there, literally using active electrical currents to zap their prey? Oh, and piranhas. There are up to 60 species of them, including the infamous red-bellied piranha. But here's the kicker. Even those terrifying piranhas are actively hunted by giant otters. The locals actually call them river wolves because of their highly coordinated, deadly pack hunting tactics.
But amidst all those terrifying predators, there's also just this incredible beauty and mystery, which is perfectly captured by the boto. This is a totally unique species of Amazon river dolphin that's essentially a living shapeshifter. They actually start their lives a greenish color, turn this vibrant, striking pink as they age, and eventually fade to a pure white. They're so enchanting that there's even a local myth that claims these dolphins come ashore, transform into beautiful women, and lure unsuspecting folks down into the mysterious river depths.
The biodiversity in this river is so dense that scientists have already officially logged 3,000 distinct species of fish. But get this, that number is barely scratching the surface. Researchers are finding roughly 50 brand new fish species every single year here. Because of that, scientists actually believe the real number of species swimming around in the Amazon is probably closer to 5,600.
All right, Chapter 4, the massive flood cycle. This is literally a river that swallows the jungle.
So you might be wondering, how on earth does one river support that much life? Well, the secret lies in its unbelievable seasonal expansion. Now, what's absolutely staggering here is the sheer difference between seasons. During the dry season, the river covers a very respectable 110,000 square kilometers. But when that wet season hits, oh man. Bolstered by its 1,100 tributary rivers, the water levels can rise by up to 9 meters. The river just completely bursts its banks and more than triples in size, covering over 350,000 square kilometers. It violently floods the surrounding rainforest, creating this immense, temporary underwater world right in the middle of the trees.
Now let's look at Chapter 5, Meeting the Atlantic Ocean, the Freshwater Invasion.
All of that immense water we just talked about, it has to go somewhere, and it all leads to this violent, spectacular discharge into the sea. During the absolute peak of the wet season, the Amazon blasts out a mind-numbing 300,000 cubic meters of water every single second. Let that sink in. That is a literal planet-altering amount of water just endlessly pouring into the ocean.
And because of basic physics, fresh water being lighter than salt water, the Amazon quite literally pushes back the mighty Atlantic Ocean. Millions of gallons of fresh water just float right on top of the heavier saltwater. It drastically alters the ocean's color and drops its acidity for miles and miles out. The sheer volume is so immense that captains steering massive ocean-faring ships far off the coast are often completely tricked into thinking they've somehow sailed into a freshwater inland sea.
But check out this fascinating geological quirk. Despite having all of that unbelievable pushing power, the Amazon, unlike almost every other major river in the world, forms absolutely zero delta when it meets the ocean. None. You'd normally expect to see massive, sprawling sediment deposits at the mouth of a river this big. But the waves of the Atlantic Ocean right there are just too powerful. The fierce ocean currents immediately snatch up and wash away all the sediment the Amazon brings in, completely preventing a delta from ever taking shape.
And the Amazon's reach is just so profound. It doesn't merely flow in a straight line to the sea, it interconnects the entire continent. Take the Casiquiare Canal, for instance. This is a massive, completely natural waterway that actually connects two entirely different colossal river systems, the Rio Negro of the Amazon Basin and the Orinoco Basin. It really proves that the Amazon isn't just a river, it is literally the circulatory system of South America.
Finally, Chapter 6, An Ecosystem in Danger. The very real threat to the lungs of the Earth.
And this brings us to a much more sobering reality for today's explainer. This ancient, powerful system is currently under some really severe strain.
Shrinking rainfall is steadily decreasing the river's historical water levels. And that drop is a huge deal. It directly threatens the survival of all that highly adapted aquatic life we discussed earlier, the ones that desperately rely on those massive seasonal flood cycles. Compounded by human interference and rapid climate change, the overall decline of the rainforest is accelerating. Highly specialized, endangered species, like the Amazonian manatee, which is totally confined to specific freshwater pockets, they are now facing immediate, critical risks to their continued survival.
As the source material for today's explainer so poignantly puts it, if we don't pay attention to nature's conservation, we might lose this millions of years old wonder and the lungs of our Earth forever. It's just a stark, heavy reminder of the immense fragility of even the absolute largest systems on our planet. So, I'll leave you to ponder this final thought for today. If an ecosystem powerful enough to survive 27-kilometer asteroid strikes, continent-crushing tectonic collisions, and global ice ages is now visibly fading, what does that actually mean for the rest of our planet? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.